Hi, I'm Pastor Bob, and welcome back to the fourth session of Best Life Ever. We are looking at the Ten Commandments as the principles to really live life in its most fulfilled and fruitful manner. We believe here at the Cause that God's ways are always better. As we've been looking at the Ten Commandments, commandment number 1 is you shall have no other gods before me. Commandment number 2 is you shall not make any idols. Number 3 was you shall not don't take God's name in vain. Don't use it uselessly. And now we get to the fourth and the final of the top 4 commandments that have to do primarily with our connection with Him. And this one has to do with remembering the Sabbath. So let's go ahead and read that. We're going to pick it up in Exodus chapter 20, beginning at verse 8, and we'll read a couple of these verses together that talk about this Sabbath day idea. Verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the 7th day is your Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your strangers who is within your gate. Verse 11, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Hey, let's work backwards through that real quickly, by the way. God rested on the 7th day. Was God tired? Hardly. Clearly God doesn't need rest, so to speak, but He chose to rest. I think He did for a couple different reasons. First of all, it's a good thing to enjoy good things in your life. It's a good thing to pause and do that. Secondly, He wanted to demonstrate something to humans, this beautiful race that He placed on this incredible planet Earth. He wanted to demonstrate something of supreme importance about how their life works best. So He says, listen, I rested, and on 1 day a week, on the 7th day, make sure that you rest as well. Make sure that you take a day off, that you have a time for yourself to recover from the work of the week. By the way, let me mention something. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that work is bad. Work is actually a good thing. We are meant to achieve and put our efforts and our energy into stuff. Now, I'm not saying your particular job is one that you love. I hope it is, but it may not be. However, don't see work as something evil. See work as an opportunity to serve God serve God's purposes during your lifetime. That being said, working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, that's wrong. So God put in place a principle of 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. Jesus was asked the question when He's talking about the Sabbath, and he simply responded. He said, look, the Sabbath man was not made for the Sabbath. It's not like, we're made for that. He said the Sabbath was made for man. This day of rest, this day of recuperation and recovery, God gave and He modeled to humans because He knows that we need a day to recover. We need a day to regenerate. And so God models this Himself, and then He says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy as unto the Lord. There needs to be a day where we rest. What are we to do with that rest? What are we to do with that time? Well, the fact of the matter is I think rest means several different things. It gives us an opportunity to refocus, and it gives us an opportunity to revitalize our lives and to revisit our priorities, by the way, as well. So that's the Sabbath day can do a number of different things for us. Most studies of humans would reveal that they function better when they have time off, when they have a break. We don't. The more we work consecutively, the longer days, the more days in a row we work, the less effective we're going to become. And so we actually need that time to rest and to recover. As a matter of fact, I like to say it this way. Sometimes the most holy thing you can do is take a nap. Take a break, because it'll help your attitude, it'll refresh you, for most of us anyways, and it just gives you a break to do these things. Now, let me visit with you one idea real quick, because sometimes it can be important to some people. Is the Sabbath day the seventh day? Does it have to be Saturday, or does it have to be Sunday? And why is it either of those days? Well, clearly, in creation, God created the first 6 days, and then the seventh day, which would be our Saturday, God did rest. And that's the way that the Sabbath day was honored all the way up until the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And for the follower of Jesus, it became the first day of the week that became God's day, the day of rest. Since the very first visitation to the empty tomb, that became the day when Christians started to celebrate. And so for most Christians, we would say that Sunday is our Sabbath day. And I think it's appropriate to embrace that as well. I know there's a whole denomination of followers of Jesus called the Seventh-day Adventist, and this isn't something worth arguing about salvation over, but clearly they believe that it's only on Saturday. Christians believe that your Sabbath day is actually Sunday. By the way, here's another little nuance. Friday for Muslims is their Sabbath day. Saturday is Sabbath days for Jews, and Sundays are Sabbath days for Christians. So if you live in a culture where all three of those are celebrated, then you're going to have some interesting weekends as time progresses. Go to Jerusalem and you'll be able to see this firsthand. When we talk about doing no work on the Sabbath, by the way, I'm reminded of when you do go to Jerusalem, you go to one of the hotels with multiple elevators, you'll find that one of those elevators is always called a Sabbath elevator. The reason for that is that on Saturdays, beginning at 5 p.m. Friday through 5 p.m. or sundown on Saturday, from Friday through Saturday, they have one elevator where all the buttons are automatically pushed. So if you had a 50-story building, and if you got on the Sabbath elevator, because all the buttons are pushed, because technically it's work to push a button that would require the generation of electricity, which requires somebody else working, because it falls into the category of work, every single button is already pushed. If you're on floor 50 and you're on that elevator, you would stop at every floor. Do not get on the Sabbath or the Shabbat elevator when you're in Jerusalem on a Friday evening through Saturday. Okay, so we talked briefly then about how did we get to the Sabbath, what is the Sabbath day, what then would happen on the Sabbath day. Remember, Mark chapter 2 talks about the fact that the Sabbath day was made for mankind. So let's say these three things. I told you one. Number one is obviously rest, but while you're resting, let's remember. Remember what? Remember God, remember our loved ones, and remember our values. I think it's very important that we choose to embrace the values of our life and teach those and pass those on to the generations. Another thing you would do on a Sabbath day is you can refocus your life as you catch your breath and refocus and think about what the week is like ahead. It gives you a time to do that. And then you're going to revitalize, as you get energy coming back into you, and you're actually what we might call sharpening the saw. You're going to make the tools of your life sharper so that your work is easier and more effective. So when you keep the Sabbath, you're saying to God, I prioritize you. You're saying to your family that God is number one, and you're saying to your neighborhood that I am serious about the Lord. Keeping the Sabbath, keeping that Sunday as a day for you. Now for pastors, of course, pastors work hard on Sundays, so typically we have another Sabbath day during the week. I make my Sabbath Monday, which is the day when we rest and recover. And so sometimes you can make adjustments in your life. Remember, the principle is more profound and important than the specifics of it. God wants me to recover, and it's not going to happen on Sunday. It needs to happen on a different day. So, God wants you to have a Sabbath day. Remember that. Keep it holy. Why do you think, by the way, that the enemy seems to bring so much busyness into our lives? Because he wants to keep us busy all week long. Sometimes you just need to shut it down. You just need to take a break, shut it down, enjoy your family, and not get so busy with projects and recreation. Just enjoy your life and your time. Listen, if you're going to live your best life ever, this is one principle that you need to learn to embrace wholeheartedly. I know sometimes in some seasons of life you're going to burn the candle at both ends, but you can't do that forever. Either you'll become ineffective or your health will break down, or something else will happen. The way to prevent that is to shut it down for a day, get in God's presence, worship Him, be in the presence of your loved ones, the people that are important to you, and allow yourself time to recover and regenerate. How cool a commandment is this? God's telling you that you have to take a day off. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next session as we shift into those guidelines given to us from the Lord about how to make our relationships the very best they can be. The final 6 commandments. We'll start that in session 5. Can't wait to see you next time.